Hello. Hello. Is this working? Let's double check. I think we're live. In which case, hello. We've been away for about 10 days. Might be 2 weeks now since I actually streamed. But yes, Jack has told me that we are live and it is all working good. So, welcome back. A lot to talk about. Preseason squad we now know. And we're going to be talking about that. We're going to talk about how I think we could line up. Of course, on the screen here, you can see loads of different options that we've got on this tour. I'll quickly go through the chat first, and then we'll get on with some questions and get into the analysis of the actual squad, because I'm sure everybody in here is looking forward to the game tomorrow, which for me is going to be 3 a.m. So that is going to be a long day because I've got other work to do during the day. I think probably some stuff to do with West Ham, and then staying up till 3 to watch Chelsea. So that's going to be a long day. But let's go through the chat first. So excited for this. It was a long wait, brother. So it would be a pleasure to see your analysis and view on the tactics as well. I hope you had a great rest. Thank you, Ivan. Again, the first guy in the chat. You must hold the record for that. You must be the first guy in the chat for the last 4 or 5 streams at least. What else do we need to look at? Buzzing for pre-season. Optimistic from Rescable. As am I. Very excited. Like I say, very, very excited. Zachary Vargas, Connor, what's up, bro? How was your holiday? It was absolutely brilliant. Really nice weather. And just nice to have a little break. Even though when I am on holiday, I find it impossible to actually switch off from football, even though I'm meant to, and I'm meant to be away. I can't switch off completely. I end up making notes and tweeting when I can, and just I can't completely switch off. It's not something I'm able to do. Miss your streams, Connor. Thank you, Victor. Thank you for the support. Welcome back. Thank you, Ivan. We're going to speak about the midfield. You said you're excited to see Tyreek George, as am I. Do you think Tyreek George could be something like our own Desiree Doué? Not Desiree Doué. Well, sort of, because he can do both roles, but we'll speak about George because I've got a few things that I sort of like analyse George with. He's my favourite youngster coming through the academy right now for a multitude of reasons, and the player comps that I give him are quite highly esteemed players, but that's just because of the unique traits that George has that makes him quite hard to compare to those lower level players. So it's tough, but like his comparisons for me are quite high end. So like I'm obviously not saying that he's as good as those players, but they're the sort of players I can see within him. Big breakout season for Action Pong and George. Hopefully, very, very much. We would love to see both of them break through big time this season. Like I say, George, my favourite. When will the rest of the first team joins them? I don't know when the rest of the first team will join them. Like Casado apparently cutting his holiday short to join the team. I'm not sure how true that is, but we've seen something about it. So that's possibly maybe he joins earlier than others. But yeah, really wish Palmer was playing so we could see if he's going to be the right wing or attacking eight. Yeah, that's something I massively want to see. I think it's going to be dependent on options. But let's go back to this one. Lacking in the midfield department. So obviously there's 5 midfielders, and if we are going to play the 3-man midfield, then you're looking at needing obviously 6 to play 2 lots of 3. Like if you're going to play 2 45s of different teams, right? Of course, the inverting player that doesn't count as a midfielder because that is making the box. So the fullbacks, you've got two. Again, there's going to be defenders that miss out. If we're doing 2 lots of 45, there's going to be a few strikers that miss out, and there's probably going to be a winger that misses out. It's going to be an interesting one because where I think we might see something a bit different, and again, it's just because in pre-season it's more about getting minutes under the belt. That I do think we could see something slightly unconventional in this area. Ugachukwu has gone with the squad. I think that is because he is the only real destroyer type that you've got in that squad with no Casado. Lavia is going to be deeper because you don't have Enzo or anyone, so Lavia is essentially your next 6. Santos again. I think he's gone with the squad for that reason. I know he's going on loan, but I think it's almost evaluate him, but also to have midfield options so that you can see what it's going to look like. Just because you haven't got Enzo there, Santos will be doing the job that Enzo would do. So for that purpose, you almost have to take that player because otherwise you're going to be playing Lavia for 90 minutes, not something you want to do. And also just for the functionality of the rest of the team, you don't want to be shoehorning players into positions that they're not going to play in. Like I said, I think that might actually happen here, but I'm going to describe why I think that might not matter as much when I go into two sort of possible teams. Again, when we're speaking about possible teams, it's impossible to predict because you're not going to play your strongest 11. You're going to play a mixture of both because you don't want it to be completely like every single player, like all your best 11 are out playing, and then the other 11 are sort of like out there to sort of just have a kick about. Like you want it to be mixed. You want the team to feel involved. You don't want to give like play your let your cards, or like what's the word, like show your hand so early, especially in pre-season. So I think it will be a mixture of what is deemed to be the second team, what is deemed to be the first team. And again, you're looking at players at this point. There's not exactly a set in stone ruling on who's who, so on like who's going to be where. So I think it's going to be a lot of experimental decisions, um, which is why it's important to keep an eye on my Twitter because I'm going to be posting. I posted today about the people that I think you need to keep an eye on the most this season, not this season, this pre-season. I'm going to be posting tomorrow the key questions going into pre-season. I'm going to post that in the day before the game. And then I'm also going to post on YouTube tomorrow. I'm going to post a video, which is going to be talking about the players that you need to watch out for most and the pretty much the two tweets put together with more detail. So make sure that you come back to the channel tomorrow before the game to watch that because that will have the information on what I think you should be watching out for during the game in more detail. Does the KDH role switch sides from left to right depending which fullback inverts? Yes, but it sort of depends. Like it doesn't have to. It could, but it doesn't have to. He's much better on that left side. Like I think no matter what, KDH is going to be the left-sided eight. But I think the possibility of the right-sided eight being the more attacking one, which would probably be Palmer rather than KDH, is dependent on which side's inverting. So I think rather than it being the KDH actual player, I think the KDH role, how you've described it, is probably the better way to put it, because that could be where we see Palmer as the right-sided attacking eight, and the left-sided eight is the more destroyer type. But yeah, and Kunku in the eight, that's an option. I'm hoping we see him in the centre forward tomorrow. And I've put Jackson on screen because he's travelled. But when we're talking about this, I'm not going to have Jackson in the team because I don't think he's going to play tomorrow. I could be completely off the mark. I've got no information on that. But he was carrying a knock. Am I like? Do people remember that he was carrying a knock? So I would be shocked if he starts, and I'd be shocked if he gets minutes when, especially in the easier game, and you've brought Broya and you. I think it's more likely that we don't see Jackson exactly still battling his ankle. That's what I'm thinking. So I have a feeling Jackson, I'll put him to the side straight away. I don't think he's going to play tomorrow. Most excited to see how we line up first 5 minutes of the game. Going to really tell us how much, tell us how much use players exactly. It's going to be. I can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm literally going to be. I'm probably going to have a nap between, because I'm going to have my notepad out. I'm going to have to watch that game 2 times over. I'll probably watch it once live and then I'll watch it in the morning again because I'm not going to stay up till 8 a.m. watching it 2 times back to back. So I'll have to rewatch it the next day for the second time, and then I'll obviously do a video, do a stream, do a Twitter thread, all sorts of things for the for what we learnt from the game. So keep your eyes out for that as well. So let's start with Jackson over there and let's start going into the team. You're hoping Gooey starts. I want to see his minutes. I don't care whether he starts or he comes off the bench, but I do want to see minutes. I think Gusto will invert and Chilwell play wide, and when Reece plays, he will play wide and Vega invert. See, I don't think I do think the fullback is going to invert. I don't think there's going to be a wide. If you mean wide centre back, then possibly for the Reece version. We'll get into that because I think Chilwell is going to be an interesting one in pre-season. Not one that I say, oh my god, you need to watch him, but I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Did you? I'm assuming you meant wide centre back. That makes sense. Right. Straight away, let's just put Sanchez in goal. We're going to put the goalies up here on the left, as you can see. Going to leave Sanchez in goal. Let's say he starts. It'll be interesting if the right back inverts or the left back. In training, it seemed to be the right back. They did do that with Gusto and Reece in the videos. I would be shocked if they haven't also practiced left side inverting, purely because Cucurella will be doing it. So the other players have to be familiar when Cucurella does it, if he does it, but I think he will. And I also think there's going to be scenarios where we sort of suit in a 2-3 base with both fullbacks inverted with the 6. Sort of, again, I don't think that's going to be too common, but I think we'll see it. I think they will want the flexibility. So it will be interesting to see how they start. I think both halves are going to have a different side inverting. But again, we'll speak about that. So, for the first half, this is what I sort of put together earlier. Tell you what, I'll try and talk about that at the end. I'm going to quickly unshare my screen because I've got another screen which already has the movement done for us, so that saves a lot of time. If I can find the right buttons. There we go. Much quicker. So this was the first lineup I put together. Again, very unlikely it's this strong. Odds are you maybe see, let's put Gui there to start. Let's say that Nkunku doesn't start. Let's say he comes on. Let's say, again, like odds are they're probably not going to pair these two together straight away. But I'm going to go through my thinking. So we're going to start with a team like this. Let's say Gui does start or Broja, okay? So like I say, let's say Nkunku's the second half striker. Jackson's not going to play. So we'll put it from there. So, let's say this is the team. What could we see? So what I'm expecting from this team, and one of the key things I want to see, and the reason I haven't gone like this for this first game, and I do want to see how this works at some point with Colwill and Tosin in the same backline, but so I think this could be Colwill Fofana or Colwill Disasi. Again, I'm not sure about that, but yeah, this is true, and this is what I mean. I think there's a good chance that we see, say, Disasi starting here, and Gusto from the get-go instead of Reece, Joe. So like a bit of a variance, but we'll talk about it as we go through. Like, of course, like I say, there's every chance Santos starts, Lavia doesn't, but the premises stays the same. So let's just put it like this for now. Let's actually put it as Disasi. Let's say Fofana doesn't play at all against Wrexham on the safe side. Let's just go with that, right? The reason that I want Tosin and Colwill in separate half lineups for the first game is because I want to see them both as the central centre back. So in this configuration, we're going to see this, is what I think, or hope. Something like this, okay? Ugachukwu as the destroyer, that sort of Ndidi role 8, again, where I envision Casado playing. KDH in the KDH role, perfect. Lavia, again, in the role he's going to play, in my opinion. Again, he can do both, but I think he's going to play this one, especially with no Enzo. That's going to be his role. Reece inverting in. Vega as the left centre-back. This is why I've got Vega with James. And again, I don't mind it like that because I want another big thing for me, big factor. I want to see Gusto in here. People were saying about him and his like ability to go up and down the line and his ability to put in crosses and his attacking output. I like the idea of Gusto inverting. He played in the academy as a midfielder. He's got all the technical abilities to do so. He's got the athleticism and sort of awareness of when to jump in the press and especially in the counter press. He's got that sort of long-legged stride and way of eating up ground. I think he's going to be perfect in that inverted role. But again, let's just, for argument's sake, let's put it as James for now. Yes, I will be staying up to watch it later. Even though I've got to start working at 9 tomorrow, as I said, it's going to be a long few days work, but it's going to be worth it because a lot of stuff is going to come out with Chelsea and it's going to be very interesting to analyse. So it's going to be fun. So like I say, Colwill here as the central centre-back. I want to see him in that role. Again, more than happy for him to be in that role when Tosin, if they play together. But I want to see how he is in there because I think that his best role would be as that central orchestrator from the back. where sort of like these two are your main, they're your ball players, and then you've got a bit of quality in the pivot. Then you got your sort of bounce players. Again, a lot of quality in Vega. You got your receivers between the lines. Again, Ugachukwu sort of doing a job because I think that's sort of like indeed he had to. That's sort of where he'll have to play in preseason, in my opinion. Again, we might see something different, but that's what I'd say. KDH in the KDH role, receiving. Something that I really want to watch out for is a few, again, in different games. I want to see different variants. So if KDH starts with Mudryk in this game, next game I want to see KDH and Sterling in the same lineup. And then I want to see different left wing pairings with Dewsbury Hall, because I think that's an important way of how they played last season, with the sort of relationship between Dewsbury Hall and that left winger, and the ability to go between the two and make those sort of half space runs. And the winger comes in, KDH replaces, and it's, I think that relationship between KDH and Mavadidi last season was very important. No, I don't really rate him as the wide centre back. Again, I've just put him here because I think he's going to play in pre-season because of the people that are there. Again, ideally, it's that. Well, it's Fafana and Colwell, but I just don't think they'll play together from the get-go. Think the fan base sleeping on how effective a signing KDH could be. True floor raiser and still offers the same athleticism as Gallagher. I think floor raiser is the perfect thing for him. I think he really is a floor raiser. I think he's going to help Maresca implement the system quicker with less sort of just, it's not the word, but it's just going to be easier, and it's going to allow other players to thrive because he knows exactly where to be within the system, and that's going to help him, help others around him. Sorry. So yeah, I want Colwell in that role, and I want to see it. So let's say again, like Zach said, like a few others have said, likelihood is it's not going to be this strong. Fab tweet on Chalobah. I'm assuming it's just about. Is it just about a few options for him? I saw earlier that like AC Milan one option, Dortmund another, Man U obviously slightly interested. Let me know what it said, if you could. But let's say that's the lineup. First lineup, like I say, that's the sort of like what I want to see. I want to see Vega as a left centre back in the first game. Again, I also think that especially against Wrexham, we have a good chance to see how this would look at times. Again, it's not going to be as structured as this. So like people that will say, no, we can't play a 2-3 base, just because it might look slightly more like this. Okay, it's like asymmetrical. Vega's still within distance of that that recovering left centre back role. Lavia is still in the middle of the pitch. He's still that focal point. Reese is slightly pushed up due to the positioning of the other players. Fafana can then sort of stretch or like come inside to bounce passes. It's a lot more fluid than people give it credit for. But the point is, I think you could see a version where you've got more advanced and on both sides of the fullbacks rather than just one. So again, it's something to think about. I'm not saying it's a certainty, and I'm not saying it's going to look like a 2-3, but I think there'll be more fluidness to which side inverts than maybe there was at Leicester. Again, not sure. Chelsea have a set price tag of 30 to 35 million for Chalobah. 3 Premier League clubs. 3 clubs in England are keen on Chalobah, and he also has a mark. At least it's higher than the 25 million, but again, I'm not overly moved on that price. I still think that we could do better. But at least it's not 25. 25 is ridiculously low. 35 would be much closer to being happy with that. Evening Connor, very surprised with the lack of centre mids taken on tour, with Santos leaving on loan and Ugachukwu just returning. Yeah, and that's why they both came on tour, right? Because the amount of centre mids that are at the club at the minute, a lot of the centre mids are the ones that aren't with the team, right? So Enzo, Casado, Gallagher, all 3 of them not with the team. That's your 3 starting midfielders from last year, essentially. So in that sense, it does sort of make sense to me why you're taking Santos, because you just have to at this point. And again, it will help others around him because he can play the role. And it's also just good to have for Maresca to have a look at him, because he is an amazing player and he's going to be a big part of the future. So it's not a bad thing. Does the inverted fullback do overlapping runs in Enzo's system? Again, it sort of depends on how far back you're pinning the teams. It will usually be that, again, I've said this in the past, sometimes one of the centre backs, so again, the inverting side that hasn't inverted from the get-go, if they step up, then this sort of gives Reece the license to step up a bit. And sometimes you'll sort of see against teams that you've really pinned back, you can start to see sort of a 2-2-5-1 is sort of how it looked. Again, take that with a pinch of salt, because that isn't going to be against an Arsenal or a Man City. That is against your lower league sides that are literally sitting in a low block on purpose to stop you, and you're pinning them in their half and you're not letting them out whatsoever. We've got Reece James in the chat. We'll get to that in a second. Hope you're doing well, Connor. Thank you very much, Yuki. Surely our midfield will look slim next season with Gallagher, Santos, Noguchukwu all probably leaving on loan or sold. I still think you're going to have two per position, because you'll have Lavia and Enzo, Casado and Gallagher. I don't think it's going to go now. If he does, and Santos goes on loan, and Noguchukwu goes on loan, then maybe there's an argument to be made. But KDH, Carney, Lavia, Enzo, Casado, Gallagher, that's okay, as long as you can also then bring back players from loan if need be. So like you have the triggering of a like loan available that you can bring them back. Like Cassidy, for example, just to have a bit of a urgent, like Santos hopefully is recallable. Hello, Ryan. Like I said, so Reece James, hello. Connor, nice work. Do you think we lack an aggressive centre back that can defend wide? Fofana, do you think Achimpong is aggressive, and he's got the, maybe not overly aggressive, but he's got the physical traits for it. So he can definitely do that role. And I think that is his calling, to be that sort of right centre back player, like inverting from right back to a right centre back. So yeah, Fofana is the main one, like you said. But yeah, I did want a right-sided aggressor for if Fofana's out, and that's why I'm a little bit disappointed about Chalobah, because I think he does that better than Disasi. Disasi's got the aggression, but he's not quite got the recovery speed. What do you think Nkunku will do in the KDH role? I'd like to see it, but I don't think. I think we're more likely to see Palmer in the KDH role, which I don't think we're even going to see that. But that's what I think you're more likely to see. I think Nkunku is going to be the 9 now. I do think Nkunku and Jackson, unless there's big moves made. And again, we're going to find out. Nkunku's the main one to watch. I've tweeted it. I'm going to say it in my video tomorrow. I'm saying it here. Nkunku's the one to watch, because I can't wait to see how he's profiled. I can't wait to see if he plays multiple positions in pre-season, if he plays every single game as a 9, if he plays off the left, if he plays as an 8. There's so much that could go. It could go so many different ways with Nkunku. He's the one to watch for me. Gallagher likely to leave. At this point, I genuinely, and again, this is nothing, like no information given to me, I'm just going off of my own accord. I would be 60-40 that Gallagher ends up staying at the club. And there's nothing to suggest that. That is just purely how I feel. But as Zach said, Gallagher going to Atletico, if it facilitates the Samu transfer, won't be training for the first team when he returns from holiday. Let's see what happens. If I'd be happy with Samu coming in. Again, that's for a different day. I think he's like the perfect profile of striker that I would have wanted to sign. Again, he's not ready made. He would be behind Nkunku and Jackson, and it would be an expensive price. But I think the potential with what you can mould him into is through the roof. So, and again, it depends on the price you can get rid of Gallagher for, because I do also think Gallagher's a backup in this team, and it'll be a shame to see him go. But I don't think he gets in the best side. So let's see. Do you think Oscar Bob is going to be world class? I do think he's going to be top notch. Do we 100% need him? Unless you think like it's a tough one with Oscar Bob, because if he did sign, I'd be right on it, because I rate him so highly as a player. But I don't think there's an extreme need for another left-footed attacker. But having said that, he is that talented. So he's one of those ones. It's a bit like Julian Alvarez, when I was sort of saying I didn't really care for the Julian Alvarez links. But I also was excited because it's Julian Alvarez and he is just that talented. Similar with Oscar Bob, in the sense that I just think he is that good that I would still be excited by it. It's just that I don't think there's an extreme sort of need for it. Does Lavia play the backup to both Casado and Enzo if Gallagher is gone? I think so. I said this too. I think Lavia is just going to be the backup to whichever one's not there, because I think he can do both roles to an exceptional level. So yeah, I think Lavia could be. If Gallagher goes, I think Lavia is the secondary choice for both those roles. I think you're right, 100%. What is your score prediction for Wrexham? Score prediction is just such a messy thing in pre-season. Let's go 4-1. Yes, it's Wrexham, but again, pre-season's messy. Let's go 4-1. I think even predicting 4 goals for the first game is really out there, but let's just do it. Why not? Thanks for your response. Do you think Palmer has the work rate to play the KDH role? It will just be against low blocks. I think he's not necessarily the work rate, but I think he's definitely got the awareness and sort of positional quality to do that role. I think that's sort of again why I think KDH is a smart signing. I think Palmer will start off as a right winger in this system, and I think the eventual push into the central areas will happen along the season in games as he learns the roles of the team, and I think eventually, I think end game, the end game of the Chelsea squad, Palmer under Maresca is a central player, but I think the start of his tenure he'll be a wide player. But let's see. If Gallagher is sold, do we sign a new midfielder? No, absolutely not. You've got enough in reserve. Again, if you really want, like, just don't loan Santos. Again, the decision's already made. He is supposedly going, but no, I don't. You don't need another midfielder. KDH was the Gallagher replacement in my eyes. You don't need to replace Gallagher. You've got more than enough there. You've got Ugachukwu. Ugachukwu's not even been loaned yet. So if Gallagher goes, there's every chance that you could keep Ugachukwu as the backup to Casado, especially if he impresses in that role in pre-season. Because like I say, he's the only real standout for this role during this pre-season. So we're going to see a lot of Ugachukwu in that role unless we see something, again, that we're not expecting, like Lavia in that role and Santos starting here. But again, the lack of midfielders, it's going to be interesting to see what we do during the pre-season, not a lack of midfielders over the whole season, just in pre-season. Thoughts on Cucurella back post defending issues continuing? It's one of those things where it's like you're gonna give something up, and again, you've got an option now in Vega that gives you that difference in profile. So then it is down to Maresca to almost highlight that. If a team is going to attack you at the back post, you've got the difference in profile to change the game through a different lens, make a change that does something new. Cucurella, that's not his strength, but he has plenty of other strengths, and that's the job of another team. No footballer is complete. Maybe a couple, but even then, very few footballers are complete. And there's a way at getting at every single player if you analyze it properly. It's just how can you make it hard for that to be uncovered? Again, that's the job of a manager, that's the job of the coaches, that's the job of the analysts. Well, the chats are coming in really thick and fast. I was going to try and put the secondary team out in a minute, but we're getting some really good questions in and we're getting some really good engagement. If everybody could slap a like on this, that would be brilliant because we've had over 40 viewers concurrently, and this is my first stream back. So if we could if we could get everybody to like this, if we could get 40 plus likes, that would be unbelievable for the first stream back. That would make my day. That'd be brilliant. Think if Gallagher's sold, we sign a right wing and Palmer becomes our right 8 depth. Possibly. Again, this is where I don't think we need another right winger though, because Sterling can be that as well. Sterling could be that, and then you've got George. So if anything, either trust George after pre-season, or if I think you're better off signing a left winger than a right winger, because you also have the contingency of Esteval coming in and Angelo. And let's not forget Angelo. There's nothing concrete on Angelo yet. We don't know if he impresses Maresca. Maybe he stays as the backup right back. It's interesting. We don't know. If Reece Gusto invert into midfield, can Palmer play as a touchline winger? Also, going Kunku Jackson, Palmer start. Considering Maresca's probably not altogether. That would be a bit too narrow. Can Palmer do it? He has the quality, absolutely, and he has the intelligence. So yes, I don't think it's the optimal usage of him. I think he's better inside, but it's doable. Understanding how good Palmer is, do you see using an asymmetrical attack with the left wing staying wide and Palmer dropping into the channel next to Jackson or Nkunku? How do you mean? So with Palmer as a left wing, but where would Palmer be starting in this? As the left-sided 8? Or how do you mean? Which areas do you think we need to strengthen for the upcoming season? See, I'm fairly happy with the squad. I think if you was to like pinpoint it, I think a goalkeeper is obviously like high on the list now. If there's a left wing opportunity, then go get that. And a striker, again, it's opportunistic, like a Samu or an Osimhen, I'm happy. If not, then I don't think you make a move accordingly. I think we're 100% buying a new goalkeeper. Yeah. It seems likely, doesn't it? So let's see what happens on that. Kukurea inverts and Enzo as a 6. Do you think that pivot is weak in transition? No, because I think Kukurea's aggression supports that, and I also think Enzo is an underrated horizontal defender in terms of moving side to side, laterally defending, whereas vertically going up and down, I think that's Enzo's weakness. Going side to side, I think that's fine. So as long as these players, KDH and Casado, if they're tracking back and doing their bit, then I'm not too worried about Enzo in transition, because I think that's the whole point. These players block to slow down. This player sweeps in and makes that double up in midfield to help protect. I'm going to quickly get through these last few. Palmer, left wing, but more of a 10. Again, I don't think we haven't seen anything to suggest it. So let's see what preseason brings. If we see overlapping fullbacks, I don't think we're going to, but let's see. Very disappointed Ishe Samuel Smith didn't make the squad. Yeah, agreed. I am disappointed too, especially with no Kukurea within the squad currently. But let's see. Again, let's see what happens there. Hopefully, he has a good season and can break in next year, because he is an exceptionally talented player, much like Achimpong on the right side. Crazy to think Noni is a far better fit on the right wing than Palmer. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a breakthrough season for Noni. I think he's going to be absolutely pivotal. Not PSG's door down with an 80 mil bid for Barkla. Yeah, I love Barkla so much. He would be perfect. I'd love him as that left winger. Get rid of Sterling, bring me Barkla. I'm happy. Let's get into that. Do you think, hang on, I'll quickly answer this one. Do you think having so much competition is actually unhealthy? In pre-season, no. And again, in the actual season, I don't think it's going to be too bad. Like, a few of these will be loaned out. So no, I think it's okay. I think the level we're at currently is okay for what we've got. Well, Chilwell play. Right, so let's get into the second team now that I think we could see. Let's move it one by one. I'm going to take Sanchez out. Again, this could be anyone. I'm just going to put Beach in because it's against Wrexham and you don't know what's going to happen. Now, this is where it gets a bit tricky, because let's take Lavia out for Santos. We're now going to switch the dynamic. We're going to take Reece out, because the inverting fullback now. Not saying I think he can do it, not saying I want to see him do it, but this is what I think we'll see tomorrow. I'd rather him trying to invert than playing as a left centre back, which is why I think you'll see Gusto, Tosin, Badiashile. Then I think you'll see Carney in that left 8. We're going to leave Ugochukwu there for now, because I'm going to discuss something in a minute. Again, this is why I think this is where there's going to be a surprise for some, or at least for me as well. And Kunku in here now. Again, that could start in a different way. Mudryk for Sterling. Madueke for Angelo, for example. Again, hopefully, if it was my choice, it would be Sterling on the right, George on the left, and we get to see George as well. That would be ideal. Yeah, and I agree. But he's going on the tour. He's going to be used. Yeah, Chilwell and Burton, but he's going to be used. What more do you like? And like you say, don't see Maresca rating him at all. Neither do I. But he's gone on the tour. He's going to get minutes. So it's either going to be as the left centre back or the inverted left back into midfield. I don't think he's going to play with an overlapping left back. I really don't. And I might be wrong. But if Chilwell's going to play one of these roles, we're going to have to see it, whether we think it's going to work or not. I don't think it's going to work, but we're going to see some sort of inclusion. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in the squad. It would be so clear already that he's being forced out, but that's not the case. So let's say that we see this team now. So that means obviously 2 goalies didn't get a game. Let's say one of Fofana and Disasi didn't get a game. Achimpong didn't get a game, but we're going to speak about that because this is the other option, I think. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Not this time. Jackson again, injury. One of Broya or Gui probably don't get a game, whichever one. Again, and Kunku probably gets the other 9 minutes if Jackson doesn't play as well. And then one of Angelo and George don't get a game, hopefully. And again, this is like assuming that we get 2 lots of 45. In the left 8 of Madueke to the right of him. So do you mean you want to see Palmer in the right 8 with Madueke to the right of him? Because otherwise you'd have Madueke as an 8. So I'm assuming you mean Palmer in the right 8, Madueke in the right wing, and then they can sort of interchange. Because that's sort of what I wanted to see as well. What fits Chile best, back 3 or inverting? I prefer him. I'd rather see him inverting than as a left centre back. but probably not actually. But if you knew you were gonna have to start him over over a long time, actually, I'd probably have him as a left centre back just because he's got he is a good recovery. He's got the recovery speed, and again, it's not going to be ideal, but you're not trusting him in the middle of the park where the technical quality is more important with your back to goal. So actually, it probably would be better to see him there if you knew he was going to start every game. But just for the sake of the pre-season, I think you'd more like to see him do this. Again, for Maresca to sort of assess. So yeah, where else were we? So like I said, there's going to be players that don't get a game. And as you can see, Ugochukwu stayed in because, like we've said before, the minutes for the midfielders is a bit up in the air because there's not as many of them. So this is where I think you might see something a bit unconventional. Let's say Gusto plays in here and Achampong plays there, right? Of course, Gusto is not going to be the defensive eight. But by doing this, you're still giving Gusto minutes in an inverted position, which he could be playing. Yes, it's not the same inverted position, and it's not even an inverted position essentially, but in possession against Wrexham, where you hope you can have more of the ball, you're still going to get him to get minutes in the centre of the pitch, and it means that you don't have to play Ugochukwu for 90 minutes, which again, it's not going to happen. Somebody is going to be in there. It's just we don't know who. Achampong then gets some minutes as well, along with George, and we sort of see a little bit of a switch about with certain things. You could even then play Santos as that role, Gusto in there. And again, but I don't think you'll see that either because I think you need to have, again, just for the consistency of the team, even in pre-season, for it to work for other players, you need to have that number 6 as a number 6 who knows what they're doing in there. And in that Winks role to sort of spray the ball and have those touches and recycle the ball. Yes, again though, this won't be starting from right back, so it's hard. It won't be the same as Porro. But I'm just saying, for the sake of 45 minutes in a friendly, whilst there's not enough midfielders with the side, it could be a method to get them minutes in areas of the pitch where they could be assessed in a different way, even though he wouldn't be playing that role at all in the actual season. We'll get onto that another day, Jason, about the start next side at the end of the season because I wanted to keep this for pre-season, but we'll get onto that another day. And again, keep an eye out for all my videos and subscribe to the channel and go follow me on Twitter because I tweet every day about all this stuff. There's nowhere to play him. He's too much of a press trigger and doesn't have the vision. Yeah, agreed. And play the wall passes. Yeah. Timeline's going to have a breakdown every time he's on the ball. Yeah, but again, he's going to play, so we're going to have to deal with it. And it will be down to Maresca to then make the decision and if there's enough interest in him because they've already said they're willing to let him go. So let's just see what happens after pre-season. I don't think Maresca's going to be a big fan of him, but he might like him as a leader, so let's see. But yeah. In the Prem, Kukurea is playing left back. I would want a winger with good work rate to help him defensively, like Nico Williams did in the Euros. And I think Mudryk does have that. I think it's more so just him staying switched on. I think his work rate is actually quite good. I think he just needs that sort of consistent coaching and sort of ability to stay switched on in that mindset. Him and Madueke both showed that towards the end of last season that they've actually got quite good defensive work rate. Kukurea, just his name. What about him? I don't want to see Kukurea on an island 1v1. Are you talking about if he was playing as the left centre back or? Hope Colwell has a good preseason. He has a really high ceiling. Should be important in the system. Yeah, that's what I mean. I want him. That's why I want to see him tomorrow in this role because I want him to have that license to be that guy and sort of orchestrate this team along with the ball carrying 6. So let's say that is Lavia. I'd like to see them two playing together. But yeah, in transition, yes. Oh, so in transition when they've gone back into a 4 because again. Transitions are going to be different in different ways. If we are hitting transition here, these players are going to press as if they're still in the 3-2-5. So the left back, if it is an inverted left back, will be pressing as if they are a DM. Whereas if they're in this position, obviously they'll be pressing if the ball is further up and it's sort of in the normal pressing scheme, something like this. Then of course they can create artificial transitions where they can sort of isolate them 1v1. So there's going to be different ways of looking at it. Lone breaking passes from central centre back with Cole, absolutely. Are there teams you see Maresca tweak his formation that allows Chilwell overlap? how he plays. I don't think so. Again, there's every chance he does because he's the manager and he'll know. The one thing I'm sort of holding out for to see if he does like tweak in that way is that he's never had the fullback quality in a team that he's got here with Reece, Gusto. Again, Chilwell, whether you rate him or not, his qualities come out wide rather than centrally. Kukurea, like there's fullback quality to be used there. So let's see if it changes how it is in the midfield where there's an overload when the opponents switch. Yeah, again, I think with his aggression and with like the Enzo working laterally with him, and then the KDH and Casado players sort of making those runs back to help too, I think that's going to be quite well covered. At least I hope so. And again, we're going to learn a lot from these few games. So I'm holding certain pieces of judgment, and we're going to be analysing everything game by game. Coming live after like the next day after every game, posting videos after every game, posting analysis threads on Twitter after every game, so that we can really delve into exactly what we've seen, and sort of unpick what we're going to see from Maresca this year. What if Enzo Maresca said Cole Palmer? Cole Palmer will suit the side. Like he's too good not to. There'll be a role for him. Whether it's where you think he's maximised or not is another story. But there will be a role for him. So that's not a worry at all for me. Very curious to see Angelo's different profile to Madueke in terms of a wide creator. Rate him so highly and hope he gets a top quality loan. I rate him highly as well. That's the other thing I was sort of speaking about on a few other streams earlier on. Angelo played quite a few games off the left for Strasbourg, so that's one to watch. Interesting. Maybe you see him used there. Possibly not, especially in pre-season with no Palmer, where your options are essentially Angelo Madueke on the right, or Sterling. But it's another thing that people haven't really took into account. Because I remember when we played Leicester City, one weakness I saw was the gap behind the two deep midfielders. That was that's true to an extent, but it's also the fact that one, the recovery speed of their back three wasn't as quick as ours would be, or as quick as Maresca would like. So the gap sometimes sunk slightly, and it would leave this rather than being sort of pressed up and sort of content when they press together, because they're confident that they then have the recovery speed to recover the channels when the ball does break, if the ball does break. But also that was against us, where Leicester were technically the less ball dominant side in that game. They're going into a game again, and again that didn't happen often. And again, the aim will be for that not to happen often at Chelsea, because he's got the players now at his disposal, where there shouldn't be many teams that are able to come and out possession us and outplay us in that sense. Man City and Arsenal may be the two, like away from home, where you're going to maybe have to sit and be a little bit more pedantic and calculated in your movements. Again, not saying Maresca will, but that's probably where it's going to come undone if it does. But the other games I'm not as worried about. We've got 51 people in the stream now. Probably going to go for another 5 minutes, but then I'm going to call it because, like I said, I've got a video that I'm making for tomorrow. So make sure you come back tomorrow, because in tomorrow's video, we're going to speak about every single player that I want to watch carefully in pre-season, the profiling of the players, what we're going to see within the system. Again, key questions going in is what's going to be quite focused on in that video tomorrow. So like exact questions that will have written down on my page before the game starts that I'll be looking to answer within that 90 minutes of football. So they're interesting things to know, because as well that gives you sort of a little bit of an insight into what an analyst, or like what people are looking for before the game even starts, because that's something that's quite key when you're watching live games, to have something that you're already watching out for, and then to also like sort of answer the question within that time frame. And that sort of gives you purpose of what you're looking for. If it's certain, like I say, if there's certain questions that people need answering, which I certainly do at this point with Chelsea and Maresca, I think everybody does. Everybody needs to know who's going to be the striker, who's going to invert, who's going to occupy the half spaces. Then Euro would have been good for anyone. He's very good, but unfortunately at Man U. Reckon Angelo surprised a lot of people and Maresca decides to keep him. We'll see. We'll see. It depends if he sees Palmer as a right wing. I think him and Madueke have got that locked, in which case Angelo goes on loan. If Palmer is viewed as a 8 from the get-go, which again I think his long-term future in this side is as an 8, if Maresca sees him as that from the jump, maybe Angelo does stay as the backup right wing. Could be correct. Don't think he will, but could be. Maresca's system is dependent on having the technical and physical profiles to make it effective. Face Investigard is shocking. Yeah, exactly. To help that technical quality in midfield, you need the physical profiles behind it to support what you're trying to do. Essentially, when you're playing elitist football, and this is something that De Zerbi came under at Brighton, all the aspects have to line up. The midfield, again, when you had Casado and McAllister, you had the technicality in midfield and ways to make it work, and you had Colwell too, and that's why it helped a little bit. But they lost a few of those players. Things started to drop away because the connection between the players and the connectivity between, as you said, the technical and physicality, both of those became undone in this sort of area. It just wasn't working the same. And that's a massive part of it. Ottoman build is needed in the system. I think it's what's needed in the squad. Maybe not necessarily the system overall, but I think it's definitely needed in the squad. I think it's the one area in the squad that we completely lack in pretty much every way. Again, if Gu and if Broja stays, and if one of them can sort of bring that aerial threat from the bench, at least for this season, then I think you can cover over it. But I think the one thing this squad's missing is against a big low block team. Where's that goal going to come from if it's not coming from volume shooters on the edge of the box? Hoiking that ball into the box with crosses, especially if you've got Mudryk out wide, who I think is a really underrated crosser of the ball. Madueke, if he's getting to the byline rather than cutting inside to switch things up. Yeah, you meant the squad too. I do think that's what completes the squad, which is why I'm also keeping a big eye on Samu, on Morodian. If he's willing to come in and be that third choice and work his way up, be useful this season, and then also, again, take those jumps because he's got the profile and the quality to become elite. So if he's willing to be that third choice this season and then work his way, and the profile's perfect, that's why I'm keeping an eye on him. Osimhen was obviously the dream. Casado right back inverting, saw that at Brighton, yeah. And again, if we didn't have Gusto and Reece, then I think that would be an option. But you've got two quality right backs. You just don't need him to do that. Again, if Reece gets injured and you start needing to rotate between Gusto and he's your only one, and Action Pong as well, he's another option. But if you want it to be an inverting one, then yeah, you've got the Casado option. So that's another. That is another option. That is another option. So we're at 57 minutes. We're going to go for a couple more minutes. Any last minute questions? Let me refresh, see how many likes we've gone for. 37 likes, and we've got 51 people in here. If everybody that hasn't liked already could smash that like button, let's try and get that to 50 likes before we end. 50 likes for the first stream back for an hour stream would be unbelievable. I think Mudryk will be a very creative player for us on left wing, as do I. I think he's going to be big in this. Again, like I've been saying with Madueke, I think these two wingers, Madueke and Mudryk, big seasons for them. I think slightly bigger for Madueke in the sense of I think he's slightly more ready in terms of confidence to sort of take that jump and be that guy. And I think he showed it towards the end of last season too. But I think Mudryk could really excel under Maresca. And again, I think with further instruction and more direct instruction, I think he's going to be extremely dangerous. That is the perfect role for him. So let's hope that everything else matches up. I hope we get Samu. He fits the Osimhen type profile now. That Atletico have gone for your guy, Dovbyk. Yeah, I do like Dovbyk a lot. But yeah, Samu would be ideal. So if Atletico have gone for Dovbyk and as well, they're apparently still interested in Julian Alvarez. So if those two go there, Samu becomes available and they still want Gallagher and we can make something happen for a good enough deal. Again, that'll be price dependent. But yeah, Kuka or Chile or Kuka about three. Kuka absolutely. I feel like both Sterling and Madrid will benefit from having to make less decisions in a more structured system. Yeah. My only issue with Sterling, and let's see how it goes, is that I think he'd slow it down. My issue with him is he slows down attacks too much, and especially in a system like this, where once it gets into these areas, you that is your chance to go direct to the box and make things happen. These are like the 1v1 isolations that you're playing for. If Sterling then starts to slow those down and recycle at the wrong times, then that would lead to quite a hostile environment at Stamford Bridge, I think, because I think he'd get a lot of boos for that, and he got a lot of boos last season for slowing down attacks, more so on the counter under Poch. But this time it would be more about the 1v1s. Yes, agree with that too, which is why I want to see them together tomorrow from the get-go. And I do want to see KDH and Sterling too, to see if that combination works any better, any worse, and see what the sort of like overall connection there is. But I want to see both pairings with KDH multiple times in pre-season. So yeah, agreed. On that note, I think we're going to leave it there. Like I said, do join tomorrow. Not a stream, it'll be a video. Watch the video tomorrow. Let me know in the comments what you think. Like I said, it's going to be very much to do with questions ahead of the game, what we could see, key players to watch in pre-season, and things to watch out for. Sterling far post tap-ins, that would be ideal if he could start bringing those goals to the side. So yeah, tune in tomorrow for that. Thank you all for watching. If you haven't already dropped a like, please do. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. Go follow me on Twitter as well for post analysis on threads and stuff like that. But in the meantime, please do watch all my other videos if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys next time.